So the Brucesploitation genre happened around the mid-70s after Bruce Lee's death, and all these movies that came, and all the movies that came out around this time that were martial arts movies, usually centered on Bruce Lee lookalikes in their own kung fu movies. Of course, Bruce Lee wasn't alive, so they had to have stand-ins like Game of Death. So we had people like Bruce Lie, L-I, and Bruce Lee, L-E, and they would just star in these low-budget kung fu movies and pretend to be Bruce Lee without having, I don't know, the class of bullshit like Game of Death. The reason why I'm talking about Brucesploitation movies is because Game of Death is considered to be part of the Brucesploitation genre. You know, it's a movie that doesn't have Bruce Lee in it, but it's somehow a class above Brucesploitation because it actually has Bruce Lee footage in it. Brucesploitation in of itself could have its very own For Your Avoidance because there's a lot of trash in this movie that really comes from just a bad place and a disrespect for Bruce Lee. Some of these movies like to pass off like they're being a tribute to Bruce Lee. Like I feel like one of the biggest and well-known Brucesploitation films is, I think it's called Goodbye Bruce Lee. It's a movie where Bruce Lee fights his way out of hell and flies away at the end of the movie. He fights James Bond, he fights Clint Eastwood. It's really strange. A lot of the Brucesploitation movies have really funny names. Like you have Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger, the mini clones of Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee's Last Game of Death. And it's all really bad. Like none of these movies are good. There is one good Brucesploitation movie that we will be talking about later, but I'm gonna wait until we get to that. There were still original kung fu movies coming out in the mid-70s. Like Jackie Chan was slowly up and coming. I believe that movies like One-Armed Boxer and One-Armed Swordsman were coming out. And movies like The 36th Chamber of Shaolin and that whole series was still going. Sammo Hung was beginning to make his rise in the Hong Kong martial arts film business. But it really didn't matter because people wanted to see more of Bruce Lee. And if that meant having someone who looked a little bit like him be in a movie and do some kung fu kicks, then the people would buy that. Some of these Brucesploitation movies made a lot of money just because people wanted to see something about Bruce Lee. One of my favorite Brucesploitation movies is the Green Hornet movie that came out around 79, I think. What it is essentially the Green Hornet TV series from, I believe, the late 60s, which had Bruce Lee in it. He was the sidekick in that movie. He wasn't the Green Hornet. But what they did was this film producer and their son bought the movie rights to the TV series The Green Hornet, and they stitched together all of these episodes to make a plot. But it really doesn't make any sense, and it's just a bunch of fight scenes spread across an hour and 20 minutes. But sadly, the rest of the Brucesploitation genre isn't this colorful. Most of this stuff is just fun to point and laugh at, but once you actually sit down to watch a Brucesploitation movie, it's very boring. But Brucesploitation is relevant in this video because, well, that's what Game of Death is. Game of Death is a Brucesploitation movie. Okay, now we're gonna cut back to the video. Bye.